طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وهدى وتقى ورشادا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن نفس لا تشبع ومن دعوة لا تسمع. نعوذ بك اللهم من هؤلاء الأربع. أما بعد، حياكم الله جميعا. In our third verse and the last with regards to the explanation of the Concise Hajj guide. With regards to tomorrow's lesson, it will be in the Tafsir of the Ayaat of Hajj from Surat al Baqarah tomorrow and day after tomorrow, on Saturday as well. Tafsir of the Ayaat from Surat al Baqarah, Ayat of Hajj from Surat al Baqarah. And on Tuesday, we will be having our verse related to the Hadith of Jabir radiallahu anhu, as in Sahih Muslim. Let's start today with our Masail, and we stopped. The last thing that we studied was what we will be doing in Muzdalifah and when will we be leaving from Muzdalifah. So we said that we will be leaving from Muzdalifah after doing the dhikr and the istighfar just before sunrise. And the reason for this is that the mushrikeen used to wait until sunrise for them to leave Muzdalifah. And they used to say, Ashriq Thabir Kayma Nughir. They used to say that, oh Thabir, Ashriq, yani, Thabir is the name of a mountain. And they would say that, Ashriq, yani, let the light shine on you, Kayma Nughir, so that we may leave and we may depart Muzdalifah. So in order to oppose the action of the mushrikeen, the Prophet ﷺ left Muzdalifah before sunrise. From this, we learned something very key with regards to the ahkam of our Sharia, that we are required as Muslims to stand out from the kuffar. We are required as Muslims to stand out from the kuffar as much as we can. And it is not something that is liked, rather it's either disliked or it is haram. Depends on the extent to which we resemble the kuffar, and resembling the kuffar and imitating the kuffar in their dress, in their even in their language at times, the asalib that they use, and to imitate them in the way they grow their facial hair, or their generally how they cut their hair, imitating them in our celebrations, imitating them in the food that we eat. We should try and strive to stand out from the kuffar. You can notice that the Prophet ﷺ was eager to oppose the mushrikeen, and that goes on to show that standing out from the kuffar is indeed one of the objectives and the maqasid of the Sharia, that we stand out and we become distinct from the kuffar, from the kuffar. Now let's start with the masail of the 10th day, and this is called Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar. Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar. The 10th day is called Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar, or the day of the greater Hajj. Why al-Hajj al-Akbar? Because most of the manasik, most of the rituals and rites are performed on this day. A large number of rituals and rites are performed on this day. Hence, it is known as Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar. And there is no basis to what the lay people claim with regards to when Arafah occurs on a Friday, it is Hajj Akbar. When it doesn't occur on a Friday, it's Hajj Asghar or whatever. And these claims have no basis at all. Rather, Hajj Akbar is a term that was used to refer to the 10th day, Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar. This is called the Yawmul Hajj al-Akbar. Why? Because most of the rituals and rites are performed on this day. Right. Let us start by reading through it. If Akhuna Abdul Rahim is available, we will ask him to read. If no, I can read through it, inshallah. Now, Zahir, he's not available. طيب, then hence we will I'll read through it myself, inshallah. Right. قال, it says the day of the greater Hajj, the 10th day. This would be a busy day. You have to perform 4 to 5 rites on this day. There are 4 to 5 rites that are to be performed on this day. Number one is the Ramy, pelting stones at the Jamrat al-Aqaba. And which one is Jamrat al-Aqaba? We'll come to it, inshallah. Slaughtering the sacrifice, the cattle. This is something that will not be in your hand. And this is if you have booked one, of course. If you haven't booked and you're performing Ifrad, then that's a different case. Number 3 will be shaving your head or trimming the hair. As for the women, then they're supposed to cut only the amount of the tip of one's finger. That's it. This much amount they're supposed to cut from their hair. Number 4 is Tawaf al-Ifadah. That's the 4th rite. And number 5 is the Saee of the Hajj for those who haven't yet performed it. But these are the 5 different rites that are to be performed on this day. Right. The Sunnah, it says, is to perform the above mentioned rites in their respective order on the 10th day. And the order in which the Prophet ﷺ performed these rites was that he started by throwing the pebbles at the Jamrah, and then he slaughtered the sacrifice, and then he shaved his head, and then he went to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah and the Saee. This is the Sunnah order. Right. But however, if someone does not perform these acts in the above order, then there is no harm. As the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he was inquired about a person who didn't follow this order, he said, If'al wala haraj. On the 10th day, lots of people came to the Prophet ﷺ asking different kinds of questions. They said, I performed Tawaf before Ramy. Some said, I sacrificed before shaving the head. I did this before that. They mixed the order. So there was a host of questions that the Prophet ﷺ was asked with regards to the order in which these rites are recommended to be performed. And to each one of them, the Prophet ﷺ said, If'al wala haraj. Do it without there being any harm in it. Okay. What does this mean? What do we derive from this? The ruling that we derive from this is that this order in which the Prophet ﷺ performed these rites is only recommended. And because the Prophet ﷺ, to everyone who mixed it up, he said to them, If'al wala haraj, it means it is not obligatory, it is not mandatory to follow this order, And hence, with regards to what some people say, that if our sacrificial animal hasn't yet been slaughtered, we cannot exit the ihram, that is incorrect. If you perform the Ramy and you shave your head, that's it, that's enough. You can exit your ihram, even if your sacrifice is slaughtered on the 3rd day of the Eid, it's absolutely fine. Even if it is slaughtered on the 4th day, it's fine. It is fine as long as you have performed Ramy and you have shaved your head. You can exit the ihram. You don't have to wait for your sacrifice to be slaughtered in order for you to be eligible to exit the ihram. I hope I am making this clear. Again, some people, they have this misconception, or you can say it's actually one of the opinions of the scholars as well. But the more authentic opinion is that you don't need to wait for the sacrifice. And if you perform Ramy and you shave your head, it is enough for you to be eligible, or for it to be permissible for you to exit your ihram. And that is called the first exit. And inshallah, we'll come to each one of these. So I hope I've made this clear. Inshallah, I'm further going to make it clear, inshallah. Okay. Number 1. Now, the first rite on the 10th day, in order, is when you leave Muzdalifah after praying Fajr and you reach Mina. The first thing that you do is the Ramy of which Jamrah. You have 3 Jamrat, but you're not going to throw the pebbles at each one of them. You're not going to throw the pebbles at each one of them. We have 3 Jamrat. We have the first Jamrah, which is called Jamrah Sughra. Sughra means the smaller one. Then you have the Wusta, the middle one or medium one, and then you have the Jamrat al-Aqaba. And Aqaba is because And at the end of it, there was a hill here, which is called Aqaba. So it used to be called Jammeh al-Aqaba. And if you have been through Sirah, you would have read about Bay'at al-Aqaba, the pledge that was made by the Ansar to the Prophet ﷺ. It was at this place, around this place where the Jamrah is. So on this 10th day, you are supposed to perform Ramy only at Jamrat al-Aqaba, only at Jamrat al-Aqaba. Okay, this is with regards to which Jamrah you're supposed to throw at. Okay, now let's go through the issues related to it. It says, number one, the chanting of Talbiyah will end with the beginning of Ramy. Now, observe this. Observe the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. From the time he had entered Ihram in Dhul Hulayfa at the Miqat until the time of Ramy, with of course a few breaks in the middle, the Prophet ﷺ kept chanting the Talbiyah. And even when he left Muzdalifah, as he was leaving Muzdalifah, he kept chanting the Talbiyah until he reached on his camel, Mina, and until he began the Ramy on Jamrat al-Aqaba. So imagine, all of this time, this would take at least an hour, and all of this time he is chanting the Talbiyah. So this is how important it is for you to chant the Talbiyah throughout your Hajj. Throughout your Hajj, keep chanting the Talbiyah. Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wal ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. Right. Number two, the time for Ramy starts from sunrise. That's the general ruling. That's the general ruling. But those who have left Muzdalifah before, those who have left at night, they can go and perform Ramy earlier. Those who left Muzdalifah. If you remember, we had discussed this, that when there are the weaker ones, the women folk, the old people, and those who accompany them, the man of the household, the leader of the household, who must accompany them in order to take care of them, all of these types of people who leave Muzdalifah early, they don't have to wait until sunrise to perform the Ramy. Rather, as soon as they reach Mina, they can perform the Ramy. They can perform Ramy. And this has been mentioned before as well. Right. Number three, it says one has to throw 7 pebbles at Jamrat al-Aqaba. And that's the third and the largest one only. That's the only one on which you have to throw the pebbles on the 10th day. Number 4, it says the pebbles can be collected from anywhere, not necessarily Muzdalifah. People, you will find them on the night of Muzdalifah, you will find them busy collecting pebbles, associating some kind of a special virtue with this act of collecting pebbles from Muzdalifah. No, there is no wujub, there is no hukum, there is no command to collect the pebbles from Muzdalifah. Yes, people do so if they haven't been provided with anything from their Hajj operator. That is because in Muzdalifah, because there are mountains and it's not, it's easily found. The pebbles are easily found in Muzdalifah, as opposed to Mina, where there are camps and you don't have a lot of pebbles lying around on the ways. So it will be difficult for you to collect them in Mina. So that's why if that is the reason you're collecting the pebbles from Muzdalifah, that's fine. But if you are associating some kind of special virtue that there's a command to collect them pebbles from Muzdalifah, then that is wrong. Also, it would be recommended as an advice, not recommended in the Sharia, but as an advice, that you collect 1 or 2 extra pebbles with you. Why? Because it might happen that when you're performing the Ramy, maybe 1 or 2 pebbles might fall off your hand, and then it's difficult to find extra pebbles over there in Mina, in the Jamarat. So if you have an extra couple or 3, that will assure you that you don't miss out on the number 7, inshallah. It doesn't mean that if you have already thrown 7, you throw an extra 3. It means that if you lose some, or you are doubtful that you threw only 6, I'm not sure if I threw 6 or 7, you can throw an extra 1. But here, it says at number, sorry, I can't really hear you.
Oh, can I please ask you a question?
Yeah, please, sure.
nowadays, companies that take you to Hajj, they provide you all kind of the services. I'm talking about the localites living, residing here in Saudi Arabia. There's a list of things that they provide. I saw that in that list, there is the provision of, like, they are providing with the pebbles also. How is it like? Is it okay? Like, if the company provides you with that and you don't have to collect?
It's absolutely fine. That's very good of them. That's ta'awun al birr wa taqwa. They are cooperating with you. Sorry, come again.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's absolutely no issues with that.
Like, so it's okay. It's okay. If we can accept that. We don't need to collect on our own.
Yes, absolutely. You can, and even if you are throwing pebbles that originated from Zimbabwe and you have brought it to Mecca, it's absolutely fine. So it's absolutely fine. Whoever provides you with the pebbles, it's okay. It also says number 4 that you don't have to wash the pebbles. Also, if there are some pebbles that have already been thrown and they hit the pillar and they bounced back and they were on the floor, you can use them. There is no harm in any of this. Fine. Number 5, it says, what should the size of the pebbles be? It says the pebbles should be about the size of a hazelnut. Hazelnut, this much, small, very small. Hazelnut and chickpeas, around the hazelnut and the chickpea. That's the kind of size that you should be collecting the pebbles, and you shouldn't exaggerate. This is a riwayah of the Prophet ﷺ, prohibited us from exceeding and transgressing in collecting large pieces of stone. No, make it small, keep it small. Okay. Number 6, it says, it is incorrect to throw all the 7 pebbles at once. Rather, they should be thrown one at each time. If you take all the 7 and you throw like this should be counted as only one. So you have to do Ramy, one each at a time. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, hakala. The sunnah is to say number 7, Allahu Akbar with each throw. Remember that the purpose is to establish the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As it was narrated from Aisha radiallahu anha that she said, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الطَّوَافُ بِالْبَيْتِ وَبَيْنَ الصَّفَا وَالْمَرْوَةِ وَرَمْيُ الْجِمَالِ لِإِقَامَةِ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. The only reason they were established and prescribed to establish the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, here brother Ali Siraj asks, he says, does the importance of chanting the talbiyah exceed that of making dhikr? Talbiyah is dhikr, is one of the adhkar. And yes, talbiyah is more recommended. It is more recommended than the other dhikr. But if someone does the takbir, it's fine. If someone does any other dhikr, it's fine. But generally during Hajj, talbiyah is the one that is more recommended. It's also a form of dhikr. Fine. Then number 8, it says, one should make sure that the pebbles fall in the basin surrounding the pillar. If they don't, then one has to repeat the throw and make sure that the pebble falls inside the basin. So what happens is that the jamarat are made something like this. So there is a large pillar that they have made, and around the pillar there is a basin. So if your pebble, if your throw, if the stone doesn't hit the pillar, it's fine. As long as it's falling in the area that has been assigned in the Sharia by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the place where the Ramy should take place, that's fine. It's the purpose is not to make sure it hits the pillar. No, the purpose is to throw within that area. The purpose is to throw within that area. The purpose is to throw within this area. This is the purpose of the Ramy. So as long as it's falling inside, it's okay. If, let's say, it hits the pillar and bounces off, absolutely fine, no problem. As long as it was in the area, it was thrown inside the area. If it hit something and fell off, it's okay. But this is the purpose. So we don't need to obsess too much with, where did it go? Did it fall inside? Did it hit the pillar? Because sometimes there would be a lot of crowd around the Jammeh. So what is, if you're throwing from somewhere here, it will be far, the pillar will be quite far from you. So it might be difficult for you to hit the pillar. Maybe your throw will only reach the base and not the pillar. In this case, it is all fine. Fine. Okay, number 9, it says, it is permissible for someone who is unable to perform Ramy due to weakness or illness, for example, or a woman, for example, who is pregnant or has a child, small child with her. She can't really go into this, very crowded place. She fears that she might expose her child to some kind of stampede or danger. Then in this case, and if she's unable to leave the child with someone else or unable to give it to her husband, it's fine if she appoints someone else to perform the Ramy on their behalf. It is fine to appoint someone else to perform Ramy on your behalf if you are unable to perform Ramy. If you are ill, if you are too weak, sometimes some of the Hajjs, they're too old, and it's dangerous to take them into such a crowded place in a wheelchair, and make them stand up and make them throw, and maybe they might get pushed by someone. So if there is this kind, and if someone fears that they might be harmed by this, it is okay that they make their old folk appoint someone else to perform Ramy on their behalf. However, if it is a temporary illness, for example, on the 10th day or on the 11th day, you're having fever, high fever, you can't really go. But you expect that on the 12th day you will get better, inshallah. So this is a question I'm asking you. Should I appoint someone else to perform Ramy on my behalf on the 11th day? Or should I delay my Ramy to the next day? If I'm ill, it's a temporary illness, and I expect to get better the next day. So should I perform and appoint someone else to perform Ramy on my behalf on that particular day, or can I delay the Ramy to the next day? Yes, absolutely. No, the brother says, he says, no, I will do it myself. It is that you will only appoint someone else when you cannot perform Ramy at all on all of the 3 days. But if you expect to get better, then wait for the next day, and then you can join the Ramy of the previous day with the next day. So first you perform the Ramy of the previous day, 1, 2, 3. Then you come back to the first Jammeh, then 1, 2, 3 of the 12th day, and likewise. And this is an issue that we will discuss again, but this is just because we mentioned illness and inability to go for Ramy. We said, okay, let's discuss this as well. Number 10, it says, it is permissible if required to delay the Ramy. It is permissible. This is something that you need to focus on. If required, it is permissible to delay the Ramy until before Fajr of the next day. I'm talking about the 10th day. On the 10th day, you were supposed to throw after sunrise. You couldn't. You got late. You went for Tawaf, Saee, etc. You come back at night, you can do the Ramy. It's fine. Until the Fajr of the 11th day, you can perform the Ramy that you were supposed to do it on the 10th day. That one Jamrah al-Aqaba. You can delay it to the Fajr of the next day. And this has been narrated from Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, that 2 women, they came and they reached by night and they couldn't perform the Ramy. So he asked them to perform the Ramy at night, and he didn't find any harm in that. So it's absolutely fine to do Ramy at night. It's absolutely fine to do Ramy at night. In fact, those people who don't find a place in Mina, their tents are located in Muzdalifah, perhaps it's even better that they perform Ramy at night, as I had recommended in one of my lectures before, because this will enable them to spend some time in Mina. And because their camps are located in Muzdalifah, if they perform Ramy at night and they're walking all the way, from the last part of the Mina to the Jamarat, and then performing the Ramy, then going back, this is 2 hours. So at least they will have extra 2 hours they will spend in Mina, instead of just sitting in their camps in Muzdalifah. Okay, it says next, you can also delay the Ramy even further, as you can perform it along with the Ramy of the next day, but after the Zawal, after Zawal al-Shams, that is Dhuhr time, after Dhuhr. So why? Because Ibn Umar, there's Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he mentions that he used to say that لا ترمى الجمار إلا بعد الزوال. The Jamarat are supposed to be thrown at after Zawal. And he also mentions in another narration that كنا نتحين فإذا زالت الشمس رمينا. We used to wait for the time, and when the Zawal would happen, when the Dhuhr time would start, then we would go for Ramy. So this goes on to show that the time for Ramy starts after Dhuhr. So if you have delayed your Ramy until Fajr, don't do the Ramy after Fajr. Now wait for the Dhuhr prayer and do it after Dhuhr along with the previous day and the next day. And if you couldn't perform it on the 10th day, you can join the Ramy of the 10th day with the Ramy of the 11th day after Dhuhr. So you go first, do the Jammeh al-Aqaba, then you come back 1, 2, 3 for the 11th day, and that's it. But number 2, it says issues related to the slaughtering of the animal for the one performing tamattu or qirana. Because they have the mandatory sacrifice, it says, though it is second in the order of actions according to Sunnah, even though that's the case, but in our times, it is not possible to know when your animal has been slaughtered, as it is usually slaughtered by the government or people appointed by your group operators, right? So the only point that we emphasize upon is that there is no harm if the above mentioned order is not followed. And one can carry on with the rest of the tasks ahead of you. So you don't have to worry about your sacrifice as long as it's being carried out within the 4 days. As long as it's being carried out within the 4 days, you don't have to worry about your sacrifice. And you can carry on with your tasks, and inshallah, and you don't have to worry about sacrifice. With regards to exiting the ihram, for that, you only have to you have to perform the Ramy and the halq, shaving or cutting and trimming your hair, and you can exit your ihram. You don't have to wait for your sacrifice. But C, it says, issues related to shaving, trimming of the hair. It says, it is highly recommended for men to shave their heads, even though it is permissible for them to trim their hair, as the Prophet ﷺ prayed thrice, 3 times, for the ones who shaved. Allahumma arhamil, or Allahumma ighfir lil muhalliqeen. Then again, someone asked him, also pray for the muqassirin. Prayed again for the muhalliqeen. Someone asked him to also pray for the muqassirin. He prayed again for the muhalliqeen. Then someone asked him again to pray also for the muqassirin. So he prayed for the muqassirin as well. Muqassir is the one who trims the hair. So he prayed thrice for those who shaved and once for those who trimmed. So, and in these kind of opportunities, one should be eager to achieve the best possible level of your of the rituals that you perform. And hence, we should all have great motivation to shave our hair, no matter how beloved they are to us, but we want the Prophet's dua to be accepted for us and to strike us and we want to have the share from the Prophet's dua 3 times instead of only 1 time. So we really want the share from Prophet's dua thrice, and hence we will, inshallah, shave our heads. But it's not obligatory, of course. If you trim your hair, it's also correct. It says, as for the women, that they should cut their hair the amount of a fingertip, this much. That's the amount of a fingertip. Number 2, it says, by doing this, one would exit the first stage of ihram. And by by performing Ramy, and by shaving or cutting your hair, you will exit the first stage of ihram. What was the first stage of ihram? What does that mean? It means everything that was haram upon you becomes halal except one, and that is engaging in intimate relations with your spouse. Other than this, you can wear your normal clothes, you can cut your hair, you can trim your beard, you can trim your mustache, you can cut your nails, you can do whatever you want, you can apply perfume. All the things that are haram upon you, they become halal except engaging in intimate relations with the wife, and that is what we call the second stage of ihram. The second stage of ihram, when will you exit it? It says in the note, as for exiting the second stage of ihram, when sexual relations are also permissible, it is done by completing the Tawaf al-Ifadah and the Saee of the Hajj. For those who haven't performed the Saee of the Hajj before Mina. So for example, if you are performing tamattu and you haven't performed Saee of the Hajj, then after performing Tawaf and Saee both, you will exit the second stage of ihram. As for someone who's already performed Saee before the day of Mina, then he only has to perform Tawaf. So when he performs the Tawaf al-Ifadah, he will exit the second stage of ihram as well. So within the 10th day, inshallah, you all will be exiting both the stages of ihram. If not within the 10th day, at least the first stage of ihram, all of you will be exiting it by performing the ramy and shaving and cutting the hair. Tawaf, maybe if you perform on the 11th day, on the 12th day, it's up to you. Then after that, you will be exiting the second stage of ihram. Fine. Any questions so far? Any questions with regards to what we have discussed so far? Fine, no questions. Alhamdulillah. That perhaps means that we are comprehending and understanding what's being discussed, because our teacher used to say that there are two kinds of people who don't ask questions. Either he has understood everything or he hasn't understood anything. So I hope that we are from the first type, from the former, not from the latter that hasn't understood anything. So it says Tawaf al-Ifadah. What's the other name for Tawaf al-Ifadah?
Tawaf al-Ziyarah, maybe?
Tawaf al-Ziyarah, yes, exactly. Mumtaz, good. Tawaf al-Ifadah and Ziyarah. It says it is a rukun. What's a rukun? Without something without which the Hajj is invalid. How many arkan of Hajj did we have? We mentioned 4. So other than Tawaf, there are 3 more. What are they? Now, the rukun means something without which the Hajj is invalid.
Ihram, Arafah day, Saee and Tawaf.
Mumtaz. Ihram, Arafah, Tawaf and Sa'i. Good, mashallah. So we have discussed Ihram, we've discussed Arafah. Now we're discussing Tawaf al-Ifadah. Says, number 1, it is not obligatory to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah on the 10th day. It's not a must to go on the 10th day. You can delay it as he likes. As much as you want, you can delay it, but your Hajj will not be complete until you perform Tawaf al-Ifadah. It says, in case of delay, he will not exit the second stage of Ihram until he is done with Tawaf al-Ifadah. And you will still be within the second stage of Ihram until you're done with Tawaf al-Ifadah. If you perform Tawaf al-Ifadah, then you will be exiting the second stage of Ihram. For example, if you want to delay Tawaf al-Ifadah for 10 days, even that is possible. But your Hajj will remain incomplete, and you will remain within the second stage of Ihram until you perform Tawaf al-Ifadah. Number 2, it says, Ramal, walking in quick short steps during the first 3 rounds in Ittiba' are sunnahs for Tawaf al-Qudum only. And hence, in Tawaf al-Ifadah, you're not supposed to perform Ramal, you're not supposed to perform any Ittiba' or observe Ittiba', which is to uncover your right shoulder. You're not supposed to do that. And you will be performing this Tawaf most probably in your normal clothes. And number 3 says, refer to Tawaf al-Qudum to learn the rest of the related sunnahs that we had mentioned, and we had discussed in details the sunnahs of Tawaf and how you're supposed to say Allahu Akbar, and are you supposed to say it in the last round or not? Which dua is the authentic dua in Tawaf, that is Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. And the rest of Tawaf, you're supposed to busy yourself with the dua. Here there is another mas'ala that I wanted to discuss, and that is that I hope everyone knows about Tawaf al-Widaa. If you know about Tawaf al-Widaa, then it is even possible to delay your Tawaf al-Ifadah until the very last day, and when you perform it at the end, before leaving Makkah, it will suffice for your Tawaf and for the Tawaf al-Widaa. It will suffice for your Tawaf al-Ifadah and Tawaf al-Widaa at the same time. So for example, I'll just explain this to you. You didn't perform it on the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. Let us say you are leaving on the 13th day, okay? You didn't perform it on the 10th day, you didn't perform it on the 11th day, you didn't perform it on the 12th day. On the 13th day, after packing up and boarding or packing your stuff and putting it in the buses, you go to the Haram, you perform Tawaf, you perform Sa'i. You don't have to perform another Tawaf that will be Tawaf al-Widaa. this tawaf will stand for your tawaf al-wida as well. This tawaf will suffice for both tawaf al-ifadah and tawaf al-wida. If you want me to explain this mas'ala again, I will do it again. Just tell me in the chats or on the microphone if you have understood this issue. If there is someone who hasn't understood this issue, I can explain it again. ما في مشكلة. Is there anyone who has not understood the issue? Like, I hope that everyone has understood, inshallah. So what you were saying is that if you delay the tawaf al-ifadah until the last day, you wouldn't have to perform an extra tawaf of tawaf al-wida'. And tawaf al-ifadah will suffice for both tawaf al-ifadah and the wida'. Right. And there is a question coming up on the 10th day. Okay, well, I'll let you complete your question, inshallah, and I'll come back to it. Okay, that's an interesting question. He says, if there's a lady during her menses, if she can perform tawaf on the 10th day, if she will become pure by the 13th day, then she will delay her tawaf al-ifadah until the 13th day and perform it. And when the day she's leaving, along with tawaf al-ifadah, the tawaf al-wida' will suffice for it. But usually people who are coming from outside of Saudi Arabia, they usually don't leave Makkah on the 13th day. They stay in Makkah. They stay for another couple of days or 4 days, 5 days, and they perhaps might go to Madina. Their flight would be after a couple of days. So usually their tawaf al-wida, so they can even delay it to the last day of their leaving. For example, if he has a flight on the 15th or 16th day, he can perform his tawaf al-ifadah on this day. And the tawaf and sa'i both, he performs it on this day, and this tawaf will count for his tawaf al-ifadah and tawaf al-wida'. Okay. It says here, if this is the case with a lady, she's having her menses, she starts on the 10th day, maybe she can delay until she becomes pure. Here, another question says, what if she starts on the 12th day? If she has time, when she's staying here in Makkah, she has enough time, she can delay it until she is in Makkah. Okay? Problem is, he's saying, I didn't understand the question again. He says, if she performed the tawaf on the 10th day, and then the menses starts at the 12th day, does she have to perform tawaf al-wida'? No. In that case, she doesn't have to perform tawaf al-wida' because the Prophet ﷺ, he gave a concession to the women who were who had menses that they cannot, they are not obliged and they are not required to perform tawaf al-wida'. They're not required to perform tawaf al-wida'. So the women in their menses have been given a concession. And Prophet ﷺ, it's said to have, he mentioned, لا ينفرن أحد حتى يكون آخر عهده بالبيت. And Ibn Abbas mentions that the people were commanded that the last thing that they do is perform tawaf, إلا أنه خفف عن الحائض, except for the one in her menses, she was given a concession. So this is not an issue. The issue is with someone who has her menses on the 10th day and her flight is on the 14th day. She's traveling back to her country. Now, tawaf al-ifadah is a rukn, and the tawaf cannot be performed when one is in their menses, right? In this case, she doesn't expect to enter her tuhur and the state of purity, except maybe after she has traveled back to her country. In this case, she has, if she can return back, if she has, and she lives in Saudi Arabia or in a country where she expects that she'll be able to return back to Saudi Arabia sometime in the future, then she can delay her tawaf al-ifadah to the next opportunity. If she can delay her flight, then she should delay her flight. And like in the first scenario I mentioned, if she thinks that she will eventually be able to come back to Saudi Arabia and perform Hajj or Umrah again, then she can delay the Tawaf al-Ifadah to that next trip. She can go back to her country, but she will remain in her second stage of Ihram. What else she can do is, medically, there is a kind of injection that is available in the clinics and in the hospitals that helps end the menses abruptly. So, for example, if she starts on the 10th day and the 11th day, if she takes that injection and she visits the hospital, she takes the injection, within a day, the menses will end. And if this is taken once or twice in the whole lifetime, it doesn't harm. If it's taken on a regular basis, it's harmful. If she takes this injection, this is a very good solution to be able to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah before traveling to their country. Because there are some cases, for example, people who come from poor countries, they're not able to, they know that they won't be able to come back again, right? So in this case, if she travels back, there is no coming back, there is no returning back. So the first solution that she has in this kind of extreme situation is that she takes the injection and she prevents her menses and ends it abruptly, and then she goes and performs Tawaf, and it's fine. If she doesn't know of any such ilaj or way to get it from, or she, for example, doesn't have access to it, she doesn't know of it, and it's highly likely that she wouldn't be able to return once she travels back, and she has to travel on the 15th, let's say, and she can't delay her flight either. So some ulama, they have given the concession that she should wear enough protection and perform Tawaf, and it will be accepted. But the most effective solution is taking the injection, but that is better than doing this, performing Tawaf while you are menstruating. So this is an extreme situation. It occurs very seldom, or very few people every year. But this is something that you should know about. Is it mandatory to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah instead of Ihram or normal clothes as well? As you wish. You have exceeded the Ihram after performing Ramy and Halq. Now it's up to you. You want to remove these pieces or you don't want to remove these pieces. You are not in the state of the Ihram. You're not in the first stage of Ihram, whether you're wearing normal clothes or the white clothes. Okay, then it says Saee of the Hajj. It says this is also a rukn, and the one who doesn't perform his Saee, his Hajj will be invalid. That's because Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that لا أتم الله وما أتم الله حج امرئ ولا عمرته لم يطف بين الصفا والمروة. The Hajj and the Umrah of a person is not perfected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until he performs Sa'i between the Safa and Marwa. So this means that the Hajj and Umrah both will be invalid and naqis without the Sa'i. Good question. The question is the Tawaf the only part of Hajj that the menstruating woman avoids? Yes, the Tawaf is the only part of Hajj that the menstruating woman avoids. And if she has performed Tawaf and then the menses starts, Sa'i, it's permissible to perform Sa'i. But Tawaf is the only one where you're not supposed to perform. The Prophet ﷺ, when Aisha radiallahu anha suffered from the same problem, he said to her, افعلي ما يفعل الحاج غير ألا تطوفي بالبيت. Do what the other Hajjis are doing, except that don't do Tawaf of the Bayt. Barakallah fikum. If the lady is living in Jeddah and is able to do Tawaf, unable to do Tawaf due to periods, it's permissible she come back home. Absolutely. One of my relatives, it happened to them perhaps a few years ago. So they asked me this question, like, what should we do? We are from Jeddah. So I told them they can come back, and the sister came back, and once she was done with the menses, she went back and they performed the Tawaf al-Ifadah and the Sa'i of the Hajj. Because in Jeddah, it's so easy to go. Within a week, the next weekend, and they went to Mecca and they performed Tawaf al-Ifadah and Sa'i, And that's absolutely fine, perfectly fine. Barakallah. Okay, it says those performing ifrad or qiran and having already performed the sa'i with tawaf al-qudum do not have to perform the sa'i after tawaf al-ifadah, because that first sa'i with tawaf al-qudum counts for both, for the sa'i of the umrah and the hajj. They don't have to do it. Only the one who performing tamattu, and he has done his umrah, he will have to perform the sa'i. So I personally performed tawaf hajj al-ifrad last year. I did the sa'i along with tawaf al-qudum, and it turned out to be very convenient as well. Because we were very tired on the 10th day. So we were very thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we only had to perform tawaf on the 10th day and we didn't have to perform sa'i. Otherwise, usually you're very tired on the 10th day. So if you're performing ifrad or qiran, it's better to perform sa'i with that tawaf al-qudum. It's also the sunnah and also recommended in terms of the tiredness that you might be suffering from on that 10th day. It says number one, sa'i is like tawaf. One can delay it along with tawaf al-ifadah if he wishes to do so, and it is not obligatory to perform it on the 10th day. And the rest of the sunnahs of the sa'i, you can refer back to that, page number 7. Okay, now we come to spending the nights of Ayyam al-Tashriq, the 11th, 12th, and 13th, possibly the 13th night in Mina, because some people leave at the 12th day, some people leave on the 13th day. So spending these nights in Mina, what's the ruling? It says spending the 11th and 12th nights in Mina is wajib, obligatory. Wajib means if you leave it out without any excuse, then you have to compensate for it and make up for it by offering a fidyah. That's the meaning of wajib. Why is it wajib? How did we know? Because the Prophet ﷺ gave a concession to those who were busy in serving the hujjaj with regards to the water sources and etc. He gave them a concession that they can spend the night elsewhere. That means, and when a concession is given to a few, that means that particular amal was actually wajib. It says, the time which is obligatory to stay in Mina is most of the night, which means more than half the night. When I say you have to spend the night in this place, it doesn't necessarily mean I have to spend each and every moment of the night in this place. If you spend more than half of the night in Mina, that's fine. That's fine. More than half of the night in Mina, that's fine. So for example, if you wanted to go somewhere and you wanted to leave, you wanted to visit someone, let's say in Aziziyah, that's outside Mina. So you can leave after you have spent more than half of the night. You can leave and go and meet your whoever you wanted to meet. Likewise, people who sometimes can't find the camp in Mina, and they can find a place in Mina to stay, for example, Masjid Khaif, or any other place, with their friends where they can stay for a bit. So once they spend more than half the night in Mina, they can go back to Muzdalifah or wherever their camp is. Likewise, some people, what do? They rent hotels. So they are living in the hotel and they come to Mina in the evening, spend more than half the night in Mina, and then they go back to their hotel. That's also fine. Fine. Now, the next question arises that if I'm supposed to spend more than half the night in Mina, what about the 10th day? Usually, most of us take rest and then they go for Tawaf and Sa'i, but after Asr, after Maghrib, and they might not come back until Fajr. So it says, however, if one goes to perform Tawaf and Ifadah and Sa'i on the 10th day and cannot make it to Mina during nighttime, or makes it to Mina but only catches a small portion of the night, then there is no harm in that. It's excused, no problem. No problem if Tawaf and Sa'i caused you to miss out on the first night in Mina, no issues. No issues if you couldn't come back. Likewise, some people have their tents in Muzdalifah, hence do not have a proper place in Mina. They should try, if possible, to spend whatever time they could in Mina, and there is no harm, an issue upon them for not being able to spend most of the night in Mina. If they are not able to spend most of the night in Mina, only a few hours in Mina, and the police is, after them is saying, don't sit here, don't stand here, move from here. This is difficult. It's difficult to be pushed around by the authorities. So if that is the case, you can go back to your camp in Muzdalifah and you spend the rest of the night in Muzdalifah and take the same ruling. It'll take the same ruling. Just like when you are praying in Masjid al-Haram, and there is no space inside the masjid, and not even in the sahan outside. Nothing mushkila if you're praying in the markets, as long as you have been forced to pray in the markets outside, it takes the same ruling. Number 2, it says the sunnah is to stay in Mina even during the daytime. During the daytime, it's a sunnah, it's recommended. The Prophet stayed in Mina, and it's recommended to stay in Mina even in the daytime. And the Prophet used to perform Ramy after Dhuhr and stay in Mina. It's not obligatory. In the daytime, if you want to leave, you can leave as well. What's the obligatory part is spending the night, more than half of it. Number 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the days of Tashriq, وَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ فِي أَيَّامٍ مَعْدُودَاتٍ. Remember Allah in these 3 days, in these 3 days of Tashriq. That means these are days that are special for dhikr. The Prophet said, they do not fast on these days. You're not supposed to fast on these days of Tashriq. And they are فَإِنَّهَا أَيَّامُ أَكْلٍ وَشُرْبٍ وَذِكْرٍ لِلَّهِ. They are days of eating, drinking, and remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So dhikr is one ibadah that you should busy yourself during these 3 days. Dhikr is one ibadah that you should busy yourself with during these 3 days. So hence one should keep remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during these days by reciting takbir, tahleel, tahmeed, and other adhkar. What about the talbiyah? Why didn't we mention the talbiyah? Can you point out where we stopped at the talbiyah? Or where did we stop the talbiyah at?
Soon as we finish pelting the stones?
As soon as we started pelting the stones, we stopped talbiyah. From there onwards, the next dhikr that you should adhere to is the takbir. And then tahleel and alhamdulillah as well, but takbir is the most important. So after that, it's all takbir and tahleel and tahmeed. And talbiyah is khalas. We stop doing the talbiyah when you pelt the stones on the 10th day on Jammeh al-Aqaba. Number 4, it says, it is permissible to leave Mina on the 12th day after performing Ramy after Dhuhr time. It's very crowded, by the way, at this time. And if one wants to leave, one wants, he can stay until the 13th. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. If someone leaves early, within 2 days, no sin upon him in doing so. وَمَنْ تَأَخَّرَ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ لِمَنْ اتَّقَى. And the one who leaves later on, also he wouldn't have any sin upon him in doing so, as long as both of them observe the taqwa of Allah. And if this ayah goes on to show that what's important is not staying until the 13th day or thinking that I did the greater act. No, the important part was the taqwa of Allah. If you're staying until the 13th and you are not observing the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not being mindful of Allah, then it's of not much use. As for the one leaving Mina, if due to crowd or traffic he's unable to exit Mina before sunset, you perform Ramy at Asr, and you are trying to exit Mina with your with the buses, and there's so much traffic and crowded, and you couldn't exit the Mina boundaries within that day, and it was sunset already and it was Maghrib time, no problem, because you had commenced your journey of exiting Mina. It's okay. So you can leave Mina, and it's not like, oh, if it is sunset, I'll have to go back. I'm stuck. No, you can continue with your journey and exit Mina. Also, if you forgot something, you exited Mina, and after sunset, you said, oh, I forgot my wallet in the masjid or in the camp. So you come back again in Mina, and now it's the next day. It's after sunset, it's the 13th day. No problem. You can take your wallet, go back. No problem. It's also fine. It's only if you deliberately stay after sunset and you say, I'm staying after sunset, now you will have to complete the Ramy of the 13th day. So if you're deliberately staying after sunset, then you have to complete the Ramy of the 13th day. Issues related to Ramy of the 11th, 12th, and 13th days. During the days of Tashriq, it is not permissible to perform Ramy before Dhuhr. General ruling is it's not permissible to perform Ramy before Dhuhr. Why? Ibn Umar said the Jamarat are supposed to be thrown at after Dhuhr, and he also said that we used to wait for this time, and after Dhuhr we used to throw the stones. It says the time for Ramy starts after Dhuhr, and the sunnah is to perform Ramy at this time. However, one can delay it until night, until the Fajr prayer of the next day. However, after Fajr until Dhuhr, you cannot perform. So, for example, this is the 10th day. 10th day starts with, on the 10th day, the Ramy's time starts from the sunrise until the Fajr of the next day, you can perform Ramy. On the 11th day, however, if this is Fajr and this is Dhuhr, the time for Ramy starts here until the Fajr. Until here, it is permissible for you to perform Ramy. But this time between Fajr and Dhuhr of the next day, of the 12th day, you're not supposed to perform Ramy. Between Fajr and Dhuhr, you cannot perform Ramy. طيب يا إخوان, this is the general rule. Okay. Some scholars, if there is a dire need and you have to travel on the 12th day, they give permission to perform Ramy before Dhuhr on the 12th day only. This is in case of a dire need. But if there isn't any much need, it's not permissible generally to perform Ramy before Dhuhr. Number two, there wouldn't be any harm if one day had to delay his Ramy until the next day. ما في مشكلة. And he performs it together with the next day. However, he will have to do it in order. So he will throw the pebbles at the first Jamrah, then the second, and the third. This will be the Ramy for the previous day. Then he will go again and he come back. So he'll start from the first Jamrah, then second, then third. Come back, first, second, third. And you're not supposed to throw at it 14 times for both days. No, you have to complete all three once, then come back and complete for the next day. So this is the way you will make up for the Ramy of the previous day. It says number three, each day you will begin with the first Jamrah, throwing 7 pebbles at it, reciting with each throw, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. The sunnah is then to move and stand to the right of this Jamrah, facing the Qibla, and pray for a long time. After the first Jamrah, you go to the right, you throw at the first Jamrah from the right side. And then you go on the right and you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make dua for a long time. Second Jamrah, you throw at it from the left side. And then you go to the left of the Jamrah and you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a long time. After third Jamrah, you throw and then you move, you leave, and you don't make dua after it. So how is the order of the dua? And this is the 3 Jamrat. After the first one, you're supposed to pray, you have to move on the right side and make dua. Second one, move on the left side, face the Qibla, make dua. Third one, no dua. Pardon the dirty handwriting. It says, number 4, one should make sure that the pebbles fall in the basin or surrounding the pillar. If they don't, one has to repeat the throw. If they don't fall inside, it didn't hit the pillar and nor did it fall inside. It just went somewhere straight away and went somewhere else. No, this one you have to repeat it. And make sure that the pebbles fall inside the basin. Number 5, it is permissible for a person who is unable to perform Ramy due to weakness or illness, for example, a woman who's pregnant has a child with her is unable to give her child to go perform Ramy. It is permissible for them to appoint someone to perform Ramy on their behalf. Finally, Tawaf al Widaa. This is important. It is move to the right means you're performing Ramy for the first Jamrah, standing on the right side of the Jamrah, and you're performing, you do the 7 times, and then you move towards the right of the Jamrah. You keep the Jamrah on your left side and you move towards the right and go walk a little bit of distance and face the Qibla and make dua. Tawaf al-Widaa, it says it is wajib. Wajib means if you don't perform it, you have to compensate for it by giving them. Wajib for whom? For those who are not from Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا ينفرن أحد حتى يكون آخر أحدكم حتى يكون آخر عهده أو حتى لا ينفرن أحد حتى يكون آخر عهده أو بالبيت أو حتى يكون آخر عهده بالبيت. That no one should leave until the last thing that he does is that he visits the house. And from this we say that Tawaf al-Widaa is a must. Who is supposed to perform Tawaf al-Widaa? Everyone who is leaving Mecca. For everyone for whom it is correct to say that he will be leaving Mecca, he has to perform Tawaf al-Widaa. Number 1, it says, the last thing to do in this Hajj is perform Tawaf al-Widaa. If one leaves Mina before sunset on the 12th, he can go perform Tawaf and then head back to his city country. As for those staying in Mecca after Hajj, they should perform this Tawaf the day they will be traveling back. Okay? Number two, okay, I have a question to ask you. If someone is traveling to Medina after Hajj, after doing his Hajj, when will he perform his Tawaf al-Widaa? When he's leaving from Medina, or when he comes back from Medina to Mecca again, and then he stays there for a couple of days, then he travels back to his country? Ya shabab. See, the scenario is as follows. Person finishes his Hajj. The schedule is that they will be heading to Medina for 5 days. They will come back to Mecca for 2 days, and then they will travel back to their country. So when will he perform Tawaf al-Widaa? When heading to Medina or when heading to his country?
When heading to his
When
country.
heading to his country.
Or when heading to Medina? If he's heading to Medina, he's leaving Mecca, that's it. He's done with his Hajj. When he's going to Medina, he's done with his Hajj. That's it. When he's coming back to Mecca from Medina, that's the that's a new trip that he's making to Mecca. That's what seems to be the case. Wallahu a'lam. Wallahu a'lam. But of course, if he doesn't and he comes back to Mecca and he performs Tawaf al-Widaa, it's fine. The Tawaf al-Widaa is only in the time for it only ends when you head back to your country. Khalas. And when you've gone back to your country, now you will have to compensate for it by paying the dam. But if you have gone to some other city, it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Number 2, it says the one who delayed Tawaf al-Ifadah and Saee until the last day doesn't have to perform Tawaf al-Widaa after having performed Tawaf al-Ifadah and Saee. This is something that we have explained earlier, because if he's performing Tawaf al-Ifadah and Saee at the very last moment, or the very last thing that he does during his Hajj, that will count for his Tawaf al-Widaa as well. Number 3, Tawaf should be one of the last things he does in his journey, one of the last things. As for fulfilling one's needs, waiting for one's companions, packing for travel, just taking your luggage from the hotel, this wouldn't have effect on the Tawaf. It doesn't mean that should be the last thing, and the next thing after Tawaf is that you ride your car and you travel to the airport. No. If you have something to do in your hotel, for example, you want to take your luggage, you're waiting for your wife, you're waiting for your family to gather, or for the bus to fill up, things that take an hour, couple of hours, that's fine. And number 4, it says, as for a menstruating woman, she's not obliged to perform Tawaf al-Widaa. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma said, أمر الناس أن يكون آخر عهدهم بالبيت إلا أنه خفف عن الحائض. She was given a concession. The menstruating woman doesn't have to perform Tawaf al-Widaa. بهذا نقف ونكتفي. This is it with regards to the ahkam of Hajj. I really hope that inshallah that this short course was beneficial for you. We still have 3 durus to go. Tomorrow we'll start the Tafsir of the Ayaat of Hajj from Baqarah, and on Saturday as well we'll have Tafsir, and on Tuesday we'll have the Hadith. But this is related to the fiqh of the Hajj. Then we had 3 days lessons, and with this, alhamdulillah, we have ended the fiqh of the Hajj. Now remains the Tafsir Hadith, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable you to perform Hajj in accordance with the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your Hajj and your efforts from you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make you sincere in your worship and protect you from showing off, which would waste your efforts. And remember, you have to preserve your deeds during Hajj and after Hajj. After Hajj as well. Do not show off. Do not say that, oh, we did this, we did that. You have to preserve your deeds, these special moments that you spent in the way of Allah. You have to preserve them until your death. And remember that repenting to Allah meant changing yourself and committing yourself to the path of goodness. So don't make a temporary repentance. Rather, this Hajj should reflect on your lifestyle for the rest of your life. And amongst the signs of an accepted deed is that one gets more tawfiq. He gets tawfiq and is enabled to do more goodness. So strive in the way of Allah even after your Hajj. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. But barakallahu fikum jami'an. There's a question here. It says, are Jeddah residents allowed to perform Hajj Tamattu? If yes, please explain the procedures for your convenience. Yes, the Jeddah residents are allowed to perform Tamattu. They will go perform Umrah, exit the Ihram by cutting their hair, and then proclaim the Ihram and assume the Ihram again and head to Mina. And this will be their Tamattu. The rest of the Hajj is the way it is. بهذا نقف ونكتفي إن شاء الله. If there are any other questions, يا إخوان, feel free to ask on WhatsApp. My number is the one that sends messages in the group. That's my number. So you can feel free to message any question on that number. When I am comfortable and I have time, I can answer your questions, inshallah, respond to them. So any question that you have, your companions have, during the Hajj, before Hajj, after Hajj, marhaba, ahlan wa sahlan. Especially during the Hajj, even if it is at 3 o'clock in the night, ما في مشكلة. Make a call, send a message, because sometimes it's an emergency and you want to know what should I do in a particular situation. So ما في مشكلة, during those 5 days of Hajj, at any time, feel free to ask any question, you, your companions, anyone. بارك الله فيكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.